He told her about the trade agreement first, because that was where it started. Not with people, but with money. The way most things started when you followed them far enough back. The agreement between Zafaran and the Northern Alliance was worth, over 10 years, something close to $4 billion in infrastructure contracts. Roads, ports, water systems, the kind of projects that would run for a generation and employ a generation and change the country in ways that couldn't be fully predicted, but could be reasonably hoped for. His father had spent 3 years building it. Karim had spent 2 negotiating the details. It was, by any reasonable measure, the best thing likely to happen to Zafaran in his lifetime, which made it, by the same measure, an exceptionally valuable thing to destroy. The opposition isn't political, he said. They were still in the car, parked outside the palace gates, the engine off, the afternoon light doing what afternoon light did, making everything look more settled than it was. It's financial. There are people, Zafaran nationals, foreign partners, people with existing contracts who benefit from the current arrangement, who lose significantly if the agreement succeeds. How significantly? She asked. The primary contractor displaced by the new agreement loses approximately $800 million in projected revenue over the agreement's term. His name is Walid Nassim. He has been a family friend for 30 years. He was at my sister's wedding. She absorbed this, the weight of it, the specific heaviness of betrayal that comes dressed in familiarity, was visible in his jaw, the set of it, the slight tension at the hinge. And Hassan, she said. Hassan is Nassim's instrument, has been for years. Plausibly deniable disruption, nothing that could be traced directly. Tribal disputes, border incidents, the kind of low-level instability that makes foreign investors nervous. He looked at the gates. My father knows about Nassim in the way he knows about many things. He has the shape of it, but not the evidence. Without evidence, he can't move. Moving against a 30-year family friend without evidence is... He stopped. It would fracture things that are already under strain. So you've been building the evidence. Trying to, for 6 months. I'm missing a direct link. Something that connects Nassim to Hassan unambiguously. Something that would hold in a formal proceeding and couldn't be explained away. Lara was quiet for a moment, looking at the gates, at the guards standing their patient watch, at the late light on the palace walls. She was thinking about 43 photographs and one in particular, frame 38, which she had reviewed in the dark of Hassan's compound on the night of the kidnapping, and then filed away because she hadn't known what she was seeing. Karim, she said, in the compound, the night you came for me, I was going through my photographs while I was waiting. I took 43 shots on the plateau road before they took me. Frame 38. I thought it was a bad shot. I was photographing the dunes, and there was a vehicle in the lower left corner that I'd cropped out mentally, but not physically. 2 men standing beside it, talking. She reached for her camera bag. I didn't know who they were. I do now. She handed him the camera, already cued to frame 38. He took it. He looked at the screen. She watched his face go through something she could only describe as a controlled detonation, a contained explosion of recognition and implication that crossed his expression and was swiftly, deliberately stilled. He looked at the photograph for a long time. Then he looked at her. That is Walid Nassim, he said. His voice was very even. Standing beside Hassan Al Maktoum, in the same location, on the same day. I know, she said. You've had this since the night of the kidnapping. I didn't know what I had. She held his gaze. I know now. The silence in the car was the kind that forms after something irrevocable. Not bad. Irrevocable wasn't the same as bad, but weighted with the understanding that what came next would be different from what had come before. He looked at the photograph again. She looked at him looking at it and understood, with the precision she usually reserved for compositions and light, that this was one of those moments that divided time. Before and after. The version of things that existed up until now, and the version that would exist from here. "I need to make a call," he said. "I know. This photograph. I need to have it authenticated. Metadata, timestamp, location data. It needs to be unimpeachable." "The camera records all of that automatically. I can export the raw file with the full EXIF data. Chain of custody from the camera card, no edits, no processing." She paused. "I've testified as a witness before. I know how this works." He looked at her with an expression that was, she thought, the closest she'd yet seen him come to undone. Not falling apart, nothing like that, but the careful architecture of his composure briefly and visibly moved. "You've been in this situation before." "I've photographed things in places where what I photographed mattered to more than a magazine." She said it simply because it was simple. It goes with the work. "And you're willing to—" "Yes," she said before he could finish. "Whatever you need, testimony, raw files, a formal statement, yes." He was quiet for a moment. Then, "Why?" She considered several answers and chose the honest one. "Because I notice things," she said. "And when I notice something true, I think it should be seen." They went inside, not to the main rooms, but to the study on the second floor. His study, she gathered, not his father's. A room that looked like a mind made physical. Books with cracked spines, a desk with the organized density of someone who thinks on paper. A single photograph on the wall that she recognized immediately as the Al-Karam Plateau at sunrise, taken from precisely the angle she'd used that morning. She looked at it, said nothing. He made 3 phone calls in rapid succession, in Zafari, with the compressed efficiency of someone who knows exactly what needs to be set in motion and has been waiting for the moment to set it. She sat in the chair across from his desk and transferred the raw file from her camera to a drive he gave her, exported the EXIF data, wrote out the circumstances of acquisition in a document he would have formally witnessed. She worked with the focus she brought to everything technical. Clean, thorough, no gaps. When she finished, she looked up and found him watching her from across the desk, with an expression she had not seen on his face before. Not the composure, not the careful control, not even the quiet version he used with her now. Something more open than all of those. Something that looked, if she was reading it correctly, like relief. "What?" she said. "Nothing," he said. Then, because she raised an eyebrow, "I've been carrying this for 6 months, trying to find the last piece, trying to protect my father from something I couldn't yet prove." A pause. "You had it. You've had it for a week, and you didn't even know it." "The camera sees everything," she said. "That's the thing people always forget. You pointed at what you're looking at, but the frame is wider than your attention. It catches what you didn't mean to look at." He looked at her for a moment. "Is that true of you? Not just the camera?" The question arrived gently and landed with considerable weight. She held his gaze. "Usually," she said, "yes." He looked at her the way the watchtower looked at the desert, with the patience of something that has waited a long time for what it was built to see, and has now, possibly, seen it. She looked back at him across the desk, with its books and its papers, and the weight of 6 months of carrying something alone, and felt the distance between them as a specific, measurable thing. About 1.5 meters, she estimated, the width of a desk, and felt also the quality of that distance, which was no longer the careful, deliberate space of 2 people being sensible, but something more like a threshold. His phone rang. He looked at the screen. Something in his expression shifted back into the professional register. Not coldly, not completely, but with the automatic reflex of a man who has responsibilities that don't wait for moments. "I have to take this," he said. "It's my father." "Go," she said. She stood, gathered her camera bag, and moved toward the door. His voice behind her, already into the call, speaking Zafari in the brisk and measured tone that meant something important was in motion. She paused at the door and looked back once, at the room, at the photograph of the plateau on the wall, at him standing at the window with the phone at his ear and the late light behind him, his hand moving slightly as he spoke, the contained energy of a man who has finally been given the thing he needed to act. She looked at the photograph on the wall one more time, wondered when it had been taken and by whom, and whether the person who took it had stood where she'd stood that morning and felt what she'd felt. Then she went out into the corridor and closed the door quietly behind her. She found Maya in the East Wing sitting room, feet tucked under her, reading something on her phone with the focused intensity she used for things that mattered. She looked up when Lara came in and read her face with the accuracy of 7 years. "Something happened," Maya said. "Several things." Lara sat down. "The photograph, frame 38. It has Nassim and Hassan in it." Maya stared. "The contractor, the one Tariq said..." "Yes." "You've had that since the first night." "I didn't know what I was looking at." "And now Karim has it. With full authentication. His legal team is already moving." Maya sat back and looked at the ceiling with an expression of someone reassessing a situation that has just become considerably more complex. "Okay," she said. "And the other thing." "What other thing?" "Lara." Her voice was gentle and direct in equal measure. "What's the other thing that happened?" Lara looked at the wall, at the window, at her camera in her lap, which she had been holding without being aware of it, the way people hold things that feel like ballast. 7 days, she said. 5 left. "I know," Maya said. "After which I go home." "I know." "And none of this..." She stopped, started again. "It doesn't matter what I..." "Lara, it's not practical." "I know." "He lives in a palace." "I'm aware." "And there's still Yasmin, and the agreement, and Hassan, and..." "Lara," Maya said, with the patience of a woman who has been waiting for this conversation since 6:14 that morning in an airport arrivals hall. "I know all of that. I know it's complicated, and I know the timing is terrible, and I know you have 17 excellent reasons why not." She reached over and put her hand over Lara's on the camera. "I'm just asking what you feel." The room was quiet. Outside, the fountain. Somewhere deeper in the palace, a door, and then footsteps, and then silence again. "Something I don't have a photograph of yet," Lara said finally. Maya looked at her for a long moment. Then she squeezed her hand and said, then maybe you should take one. At 9 that evening, a message came through the palace's internal system to all guests. Formal, brief, in the sheikh's name. There would be a reception the following night, a diplomatic gathering previously scheduled, attendees from the ministry and the Northern Alliance delegation. All residents of the palace were invited. Dress formal. Lara read it on her phone and thought, 5 days. Then she thought, Nassim would be there. It was the kind of event he attended. And Yasmin. And Karim, in whatever version of himself he wore for rooms full of people who were watching him for weakness. She thought about frame 38 and the authentication already in motion, and the legal team already moving, and the clock running on all of it simultaneously. Then she thought about what Maya had said. Then she opened her wardrobe and looked at what she had to wear to a formal diplomatic reception in a palace, and immediately called Maya, who arrived in 4 minutes with the energy of someone who had been waiting for exactly this task and considered it a gift. Next chapter. The reception. She walked into the reception in a dress the color of desert dusk and watched Walid Nassim across the room. A man who didn't know yet that the last piece had been found, that it had been in her camera all along, and that the clock had already started.